Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know we love tackling those brain-bending topics, the ones that really make you question what's going on up there. And today, we're diving into one that I bet every single one of you has experienced at some point, that weird, almost unsettling feeling of déjà vu.
Ah, yes, déjà vu. The feeling that you've already lived through the present moment, even though you know logically that can't be true. It's a fascinating quirk of the human experience, isn't it?
It really is. It's like your brain is playing tricks on you, giving you this sudden flash of familiarity in a situation that's completely new. And we asked you, our awesome listeners, to send in your experiences and some of the articles and research that you found particularly interesting about déjà vu. And wow, did you guys deliver? We got so much great stuff.
We really did. It seems like this topic really struck a chord, and it's not hard to see why. Déjà vu is something that almost everyone can relate to, but it's also shrouded in mystery.
Exactly. So before we get too deep into things, let's lay some groundwork. Just a few quick facts to get us all on the same page. First off, how common is this experience? Well, from what we've gathered, it looks like a whopping 60 to 70% of people report having experienced déjà vu at some point in their lives. That's a huge majority.
It is, and if you haven't experienced it yet, well, there's a good chance you will eventually. It really is a universal phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, it also seems to be more common in younger adults, particularly those between the ages of 15 and 25.
That is interesting. I wonder if that's because younger brains are still developing and perhaps more prone to these little cognitive hiccups. Or maybe it's simply because they're encountering so many new experiences for the first time.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that second one. It could just be that your brain is firing on all cylinders, trying to process all that new information and make connections, and sometimes it gets a little dot crossed.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, here's another interesting tidbit. Frequent travelers and people with higher education levels also tend to report more instances of déjà vu.
Oh, that's an interesting connection. Maybe it has something to do with the diversity of experiences. People who travel a lot or have a broad range of knowledge might have a wider library of memories and sensory data for their brains to draw from, making it more likely to find those subtle echoes or resemblances.
That's a really compelling idea. And lastly, even though it can feel really intense and significant when it happens, the actual experience of déjà vu is usually pretty brief. We're talking just a few seconds. A fleeting glimpse of familiarity that vanishes as quickly as it appears.
Yeah, it's that ephemeral nature that makes it so tricky to study. It's hard to catch it in the act, so to speak.
Right. So you've got this incredibly common, often intense experience that happens to almost everyone, but it's also really difficult to pin down and study scientifically. And that, my friends, is why we're here today.
Exactly. We're going to delve into both the science and the mystery of déjà vu, trying to untangle some of the threads of this fascinating phenomenon.
Perfect. So let's start with the science. What are some of the leading theories that researchers have come up with to explain why we experience déjà vu?
Well, there are quite a few contenders out there, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. One of the most prominent and well-supported is the memory glitch theory.
Memory glitch. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for us.
Sure thing. The basic idea is that sometimes, for reasons we don't fully understand yet, the brain might accidentally process a new experience as if it were an old memory.
So like instead of filing it away in short-term memory, it goes straight to the long-term storage.
Precisely. And this can lead to a feeling of familiarity because the brain is essentially telling you, hey, I remember this, even though you've never encountered the situation before.
So it's like a misfire in the brain's filing system.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It really is. And there's some evidence to support this idea. Researchers have found that stimulating certain parts of the temporal lobe, the brain region responsible for memory processing, can trigger feelings of déjà vu.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we can actually manipulate the brain to create this feeling.
To some extent, yes. It suggests that the temporal lobe is definitely playing a key role here.
Makes sense. Okay, so that's the memory glitch theory. What other explanations are out there?
Well, there's also the dual processing theory, which suggests that our brains might be processing information through two parallel pathways. One pathway is fast and automatic, giving us a quick gut feeling about a situation, while the other is slower and more deliberate, providing a more detailed and conscious analysis.
So like a two-track system.
Exactly. And the theory proposes that if these two pathways get out of sync, even by a fraction of a second, it could create that eerie feeling of having experienced something before. The quick automatic pathway might give you a sense of familiarity before the slower conscious pathway catches up, and your brain goes, hold on, did I just live through this already?
So it's like a timing issue, a little bit of lag between those two processing streams?
Precisely. And that tiny delay could be enough to create the sensation of déjà vu.
That's really cool. Okay, what else?
Another idea that's been floating around is the neural transmission delay theory.
Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is a bit technical, but the basic gist is that there might be a slight delay in the way information from our two eyes is processed by the brain. And that tiny discrepancy in timing could trick the brain into thinking it's seen something twice, even though it's just a single event being processed slightly differently.
Huh. So it's like an echo effect, but in our visual system.
Exactly, like a double take, but happening internally.
I like that. Okay, so we've got glitches, dual processing, and delayed transmissions. Any other scientific explanations we should know about?
Well, one that's particularly interesting is the idea that déjà vu might be tied to our brain's amazing ability to recognize patterns. You know, we humans are constantly looking for patterns and connections in the world around us, and our brains are incredibly good at picking up on even subtle similarities. So the theory goes that sometimes we might encounter a situation that shares certain features or elements with a past experience, even if we don't consciously remember that past experience.
So it's like walking into a new restaurant and feeling a sense of familiarity because the layout reminds you of a childhood friend's house, even though you don't consciously make that connection.
Exactly. Your brain is constantly scanning for patterns, and sometimes it might make a false positive connection, triggering that feeling of déjà vu. It's like your brain is saying, this feels familiar, but it can't quite put its finger on why.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. Okay, so those are some of the leading scientific theories about déjà vu, but I know there are also some more, shall we say, out there explanations as well, and we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't explore some of those.
Oh, absolutely. We have to venture into the realm of speculation, where things get a little more philosophical and maybe even a little bit spooky.
Okay, hit me with the most mind-blowing theory.
Well, how about this? What if déjà vu isn't a glitch in our brains, but a glitch in reality itself?
Whoa, okay, I'm listening.
This is where we get into the simulation hypothesis, the idea that our reality might actually be a super advanced computer simulation. And within this framework, déjà vu could be interpreted as a sign that something's not quite right with the simulation.
Like we're seeing the seams in the code or something.
Exactly. It could be a sign that the program is repeating itself or that there's a temporary error in the rendering of our simulated world.
Okay, that is seriously trippy. So every time we get that feeling of déjà vu, it's like a little reminder that we might be living in the Matrix.
Perhaps. It's a fun thought experiment, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, what other mind-bending explanations did you come across in your research?
Well, we also have theories that venture into the realm of spirituality and metaphysics. For example, some people believe that déjà vu could be evidence of past lives or reincarnation. The idea is that the feeling of familiarity might actually be a memory from a previous existence.
So it's not just a glitch in this life, but a bleed through from another life altogether.
Precisely. It suggests that our consciousness might be more than just a product of our physical brains.
Whoa, okay, that's pretty profound.
It is, and it resonates with a lot of people who feel a deep connection to the idea of a soul that transcends individual lifetimes.
I can see why that would be appealing. Okay, any other theories that we should explore?
One more that often comes up is the idea of parallel universes.
Oh yeah, like the multiverse.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, the idea is that there might be countless other universes existing alongside our own, some of which might be very similar to ours. And some people believe that déjà vu could be a brief glimpse into one of these parallel realities.
So like our consciousness is momentarily crossing over into another version of ourselves experiencing a similar event.
Exactly. It's like a brief overlap or intersection between two different timelines.
Okay, that one might be my favorite so far. It's
Yeah.
so expansive.
It definitely captures the imagination. And while there's no scientific evidence to support these more speculative theories, they do raise some interesting questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and the limits of our understanding.
Absolutely. It's all part of the fun of exploring these mysterious corners of human experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from brain glitches to glitches in the matrix itself. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something a bit more practical. Are there any factors that might make someone more likely to experience déjà vu?
There are a few things that have been linked to an increased likelihood of déjà vu, although it's important to remember that correlation doesn't equal causation. For example, stress and fatigue seem to play a role. When we're tired or stressed, our brains aren't functioning at their best, And that might make those little cognitive slip-ups more likely to occur.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're running on fumes, your brain is more prone to errors.
Exactly. Another factor seems to be exposure to new environments. People who travel a lot or are constantly encountering new things tend to report more déjà vu experiences.
I can see that. It's like your brain is working overtime trying to process all that new information, and sometimes it gets a little confused.
That's a good way to put it. And there's even some anecdotal evidence suggesting that people who practice mindfulness or meditation might experience déjà vu more frequently.
Huh, that's interesting. Why would that be?
Well, it could be that these practices make people more attuned to their internal states and more aware of subtle shifts in their perception. So they might simply be more likely to notice those fleeting feelings of familiarity.
That makes sense. It's like they're more in tune with their own brain activity.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got stress, fatigue, new environments, and maybe even mindfulness. Any other factors that we should be aware of?
Well, there's one more thing that's worth mentioning, and it might be a bit of a disappointment to some people. There's no known way to intentionally induce déjà vu.
Oh, man.
Uh,
So no special techniques or secret rituals we can use to trigger that feeling.
Not that we know of. It seems to be a spontaneous phenomenon that occurs on its own terms.
Bummer. Well, I guess that just adds to the mystery of it all.
It certainly does. It's a reminder that we still have a lot to learn about the inner workings of our own minds.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's safe to say that we've covered just about everything there is to know about déjà vu, or at least everything we know so far. Before we sign off, any final thoughts on this intriguing phenomenon?
Just that it's a great reminder that even the most commonplace experiences can be incredibly complex and mysterious. It's a testament to the power and the strangeness of the human brain.
Well said. And for all of you listening, we'd love to hear about your own experiences with déjà vu. Have you ever had a particularly vivid or memorable episode? What theories resonate most with you? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments or on social media. We're always eager to continue the conversation.
Yes, please do. Your insights are invaluable.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. Next time you get that eerie feeling of déjà vu, take a moment to appreciate the mystery of it all. It's a reminder that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves, something we may never fully understand. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.